welcome back to my channel. I feel like I haven't been on YouTube in forever because I haven't. And in case you haven't put two and two together, we had our baby boy. So his name is Gregory Eugene Summers III, and we're calling him Trip for short for his nickname, like triple Trip. A lot of people like do Trey or Trace, but we heard the name Trip and we're like, oh my gosh, that is his name. So in today's video, I will be going along and sharing with you guys my birth story. And this was a crazy birth story. It's a positive birth story, praise God, but it really was such a long process. And so right now Bubs is sleeping. I have him on the little monitor right here. I watch it like a hawk, like I kid you not. I'm just like staring at it all the time. And also there's these like lines on my face because of the sun, so I'm gonna like scoot forward a little bit so it'll be up close and personal. But anyway, so my labor started on Friday. So he was born on a Tuesday. He was born on September 19th. And so the labor started on the Friday, and I went to an appointment. I had my, I think, 40 weeks or 39 week appointment, or for some reason I went in and I got checked and they checked my cervix, and basically they said, now I'm forgetting my birth story. Wait a second. Okay, now I remember my birth story and the lines are so bad. I'm gonna move. Okay, this is better. So I went in for, I think, my 39 week checkup, and they checked my cervix on Friday. And so she was like, you'll have light cramping and a little bit of bleeding. So I went home, and sure enough, I started having like contractions, and they were becoming a little bit more consistent. So they were happening, you know, like every 5 minutes, and they were lasting for a minute. And that's when they tell you to go in. They tell you when it's 511, that's when you go in. And so we went into the hospital, and we were so excited. We're like, oh my gosh, like baby's coming, having contractions, like, you know, within that time frame. And so we went in, and my husband and I, Greg, we joke because they like gatekeep. And so we went in and they're like, sorry, no, you're not dilated enough. Like, you're gonna have to go home. So they checked my cervix and they're like, you can go walk around for a little bit. And so we walked around for an hour. And so we went in late. And so by this time, when we went back to get checked, after we had walked around for an hour, it was like 11:30. And so I was so tired because I was having these contractions, and they were like, sorry, we can't take you, you have to go home. So we went home. I was so discouraged because I really thought that was it. And so throughout the night, they got more intense. Greg's home. Oh my gosh, this video is crazy. Okay, quick intermission. Here is Trip and Greg.
I gotta bend down.
Which one's Greg and which one's Trip?
Oh.
Trick question, because they're both Greg. Oh my gosh. So cute. Do it. So after that night, Friday night, I was having the most intense contractions. And so I was like, Mom, you need to come up here. So my mom and my mother-in-law, they drove up from Orlando to Pensacola because they thought I was going to go in, if not that night, then the next morning. And so they wanted to be there, obviously, for the delivery. So that night, I was having such strong contractions. They were stronger than the night before, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is happening. So we decided we were going to go to the hospital that they were staying at in Pensacola to meet our moms and then head over to the hospital together. And so when we met them, I was like, you know what, I can hold off a little bit longer, I can labor a little bit longer. And so we waited, and then my contractions started becoming completely irregular. So they went from 511 to becoming, you know, every 15 minutes, every 20 minutes. And that was so discouraging because they were so painful, and I just wanted the labor to start. So if you don't know, there's like early labor and active labor. And so I was in early labor that whole time. And so I didn't end up going to the hospital Saturday. We walked around so much, and I honestly was just so exhausted. My body was so tired. I know Trip was so tired because of all the contracting and just walking and just, you know, thinking, okay, is this happening? Is this not happening? And so on Sunday, my contractions completely basically stopped. So I was so discouraged because I was like, wow, I was having such intense contractions, and now, you know, they're gone. I was still having them, but they were like 20 minutes apart, and they weren't really intense. So then on Monday, I was having contractions again, and they were increasing in intensity. And so I was like, okay, this is really great news. My mom and my mother-in-law were there the whole time. Greg had to go to work on Monday, so Greg was at work. And so at 5 p.m. on Monday, my water broke, and Greg came home right at 5 p.m. Like, the timing couldn't have been more perfect. And so all 4 of us, we go to the hospital. I go into triage, and I'm like, hey guys, my water broke. Again, I was on triage on Friday, so this is my second time in triage. And so I was up there, and they're like, okay, like, we're going to check to make sure your water broke. So they checked it, and it came back negative. And at this point, I was so discouraged because I was like, I knew my water broke. When I tell you guys, I was like flooding liquid out of me. It was just like pouring and pouring and pouring. So I don't know why it was negative to this day. I don't know what was negative, but that kind of spiraled into a whole bunch of quick decisions that had to happen, because they want you to usually have the baby within 24 hours if your water breaks because of infection. But at the same time, if they're saying it didn't break, like, do you just, okay, like, it didn't break, but I know my body and I know it broke. And so after they said that it was negative, they told me that I wasn't dilated. I was like 3 or 4 centimeters dilated, or maybe I was 3 centimeters dilated, and they wanted to get me to 4. And I've heard that once they're 3 centimeters dilated, they usually take you back, but they were really persistent about being 4. I'm like, I'm almost 4, like, can you just take me? And so they were like, no. And so they said the only way they would take me back is if I was to get induced. And so this was against everything I wanted in my birth plan. I did not want to get induced at all. And this was honestly probably the hardest decision during the labor, because I wanted to go naturally, but at the same time, like, I knew my water broke, and at the same time I was in so much pain that I just wanted to be at the hospital. Like, thinking about going back and then going back to the hospital and going through the whole triage process again was like so exhausting to me. And I had been in labor since Friday, and so this was, you know, the 3rd day, almost the 4th day, because it was at nighttime that I was in labor. And to think that I would have had to go back home, go through the whole process again, was a lot. So I called my mom, because only Greg and I were allowed in the triage room, and she was like, you know, just get induced. And Miss Christy, she was like, I don't know. And so it was just like a big decision, and, you know, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and obviously it was a decision with Greg and I. So we honestly just prayed about it, and we said, you know, Lord, just give us peace with whatever decision. And so we both felt peace to, like, be induced, because 1, I really felt like my water had broken, and that's what they would have done anyway. And 2, we were just, you know, ready to get the baby out. I was full term. Trip was actually born on his due date, so I was full term, and so I felt good about it. And obviously he was coming regardless, because, you know, I was already in labor. So after that, I got admitted, and I was in the birthing room, and spirits were so high. I was starting to contract more and more on my own before they started the Pitocin, and so that was really cool to just, you know, feel those contractions and things. And they started the Pitocin, and the Pitocin hurt so bad. I've heard that the Pitocin is worse than just, you know, regular going through birth, and I hope that's true, because that was so painful. So I ended up getting the epidural. I didn't know going into it, but it was a no-brainer once I, like, hit this one contraction. I'm like, if it's gonna get worse than this, then I need the epidural. So I got the epidural, and by the time, I think we got admitted around, like, I want to say like 7 or 8, and then 8 p.m., like 7:30, 8 p.m., we were in the room. And then this was where it gets really fun. So around like 3 or 4 a.m., they checked my cervix, and I was 6 centimeters dilated. And so you have to get to 10 to, you know, have the baby. And so it was wild, because I kid you not, 15 minutes later, I called the nurse, and I was like, you need to get in here. I feel his head in, you know, that area. And I actually said I feel his hair. Like, I could feel, like, the feeling of hair down there. It might be TMI, but that's what happened. So the nurse came in, and, you know, she was like, okay, I just checked you 15 minutes ago. Like, I don't know how much could have happened in 15 minutes, because it takes a while to get to 10. And she checked me, and she was like, oh my gosh, you're 10 centimeters dilated. This baby is coming. And so I pushed with her for 30 minutes before the doctor came in. And when the doctor came in, we gave it 3 pushes and he came out. The pushing was my favorite part because it happened so fast. And that moment when he came out was something I will never, ever, ever forget. It's just the most beautiful, most supernatural, most miracle moment of my entire life, truly. And just hearing his cry and just seeing him on my chest and just like, okay, I grew this human for 9 months and here he is, was just incredible. Greg and I were just over the moon, so excited. So after that, I did chest to chest and Greg did chest to chest, and we stayed in the mother and baby room for honestly just one day because Trip was born at 5:04 a.m. And so we stayed all day the 19th, and then we stayed half of the 20th, and then we left on that Wednesday. So we were really, I felt like we were in the hospital all weekend, but we really, after Trip was born, we were only in there for like a day and a half, which was really nice because we were just excited to like be in our own space. But if you follow me, you know that we were in Pensacola, Florida, and now we are finally back at our home in South Carolina. We were there for 3 months, and Trip was born down there, but we were staying in a hotel, and not like it was a nice hotel, but not the nicest hotel. And so we were just really, really, really happy to just be back in our space and be back in our home. But we are so in love, and I can't wait to show you guys more of Trip on here. But I really wanted to do the birth vlog first, before we like get into days in the lives and other things, because I felt like that's important. And also clearly I had forgotten in the past 5 or 6 weeks like what happened, so it's important to have this on here so Trip can know his own birth story, because his mom might forget, which is terrible. But other details about his birth is he weighed 8 pounds 9 ounces and he was 21 inches long. And so he has blue eyes and blonde hair, and he is just the cutest little peanut. But I think this is them. So I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe.